Star Trek, Primitive Passenger, Season 2, Episode 2, Outpost Alpha. The Havoc drifted in the void of deep space, an inky sentinel against the backdrop of unknown stars. On the bridge, Nolan Mercer stood before a sprawling holographic star chart, his face bathed in the soft azure glow of countless celestial bodies. His eyes, sharp despite the fatigue etched in the lines around them, darted from system to system, weighing possibilities and dangers with each glance. "Ilara," he murmured, his voice slow and thoughtful. "What do you make of this sector?" Ilara's voice filled the bridge, her tone more nuanced and natural than ever before. The recent acquisition of the Federation database had expanded her capabilities in ways that still surprised Nolan. "It's a fascinating region, Nolan," she replied, a hint of excitement coloring her words. "The Federation's notes are remarkably extensive, considering their lack of official presence." Nolan's eyebrow arched, curiosity piqued. "Oh, anything that catches your eye?" As Ilara spoke, the star chart shifted and zoomed, highlighting various systems and celestial bodies. The sector is primarily populated by single-planet species, most still taking their first tentative steps into the cosmos. There's no major power block to contend with, at least not yet. Zooming in, she continued, "This system and a handful of planets are dominated by the Cardassians. Most recent notes are 20 years out of date, but it says they are in constant upheaval between their civilian government and, at the time, a growing military sector pushing for supremacy. This area not far away is controlled by a group called the Zalaxian Imperium. Primarily, it's the two member races of the planet Zalax, a third race that lives on their moon and bits and pieces of races from the immediate area. They are considered the technological power in the sector." Nolan's fingers danced across the holographic display, manipulating the image to focus on specific star systems. The ghost of a smile played at the corners of his mouth as he contemplated the possibilities. "Sounds like opportunity knocking." "What about resources?" "Preliminary scans are promising," Ilara responded, her voice taking on a more businesslike tone. "Several systems show significant dilithium deposits. There's also a high concentration of rare earth elements that could prove invaluable for our more specialized projects." Nolan nodded slowly, his mind already racing with potential ventures and schemes. The vastness of space before him was no longer just a hiding place from Starfleet, but a frontier ripe for exploitation. "It's perfect," he breathed, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of ambition and relief. "Far enough from Federation influence to give us breathing room, but close enough to civilization to build something substantial." "There is one potential complication," Ilara interjected, her tone cautious. "It looks like multiple factions are already bumping into each other for control of mining operations." She added different colored lights to the star chart to show where different factions were already entrenched. Nolan waved a dismissive hand. "With so many players, obviously none of them are really in control." He stepped back from the star chart, crossing his arms as he surveyed the glittering expanse before him. For the first time since their narrow escape from Earth, Nolan felt the tension in his shoulders begin to ease. "Set a course," he commanded, his voice filled with renewed purpose. "Let's see if we can carve out a little empire of our own." As the Havoc's engines hummed to life, propelling them toward their new hunting grounds, Nolan couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The game was afoot once more, and this time he intended to change the rules entirely. As the Havoc emerged from warp in a nondescript system on the fringes of their chosen territory, Nolan's initial optimism quickly gave way to a more complex reality. The massive dreadship was surrounded by a debris field that cluttered the view screen, a silent testament to a recent conflict. "It appears to be the aftermath of a recent skirmish," Ilara replied, her tone analytical. "The technology is consistent with mid-22nd century Earth capabilities, but it's clearly of alien origin." A proximity alert chimed softly through the cavernous bridge. A battered ship, its bronze hull scarred and venting plasma, limped into view. Despite its size, it appeared minuscule against the backdrop of the Havoc's imposing silhouette. "We're being hailed," Ilara announced. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a reptilian face with deep-set eyes and a pronounced cranial ridge. "This is Captain Kelnar of the Tobrid vessel Solace. We require assistance." The alien's voice crackled with urgency. Nolan leaned forward, intrigued. "This is Nolan Mercer of the Havoc. What seems to be the trouble, Captain?" Before Kelnar could respond, another alarm sounded. "Multiple ships decloaking," Ilara warned. "Configuration matches Breen designs, though their presence this far from Breen space is unexpected." Nolan's mind raced, recalling the limited information from the Federation database. The Breen, a secretive and technologically advanced species known for their unpredictability and formidable weapons. "Looks like we've stumbled into someone else's war," Nolan muttered, his fingers dancing across the tactical console. "Ilara, bring our weapons online, but hold fire. Let's see how this plays out." The Breen ships, while impressive by local standards, were dwarfed by the Havoc's immense bulk. They moved to surround the Tobrid vessel, seemingly oblivious to the new arrival. "Open a channel to the Breen," Nolan commanded, straightening his posture. "Let's introduce ourselves to the neighborhood." The view screen split, showing both Kelnar's anxious face and the helmeted visage of a Breen commander. Nolan addressed them both, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Gentlemen, it seems we've interrupted a rather heated discussion. I'm new to this sector, and I'd prefer to start off on the right foot with all parties. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement that benefits everyone." The Breen responded with a series of unintelligible electronic chirps and whistles. Kelnar, his voice tinged with desperation, quickly interjected. "They're laying claim to a trilithium-rich asteroid field we discovered. We were mining peacefully when they attacked without warning. They've killed hundreds." Nolan's eyes glittered with interest. Trilithium, a substance with immense potential for both energy production and weapons manufacturing. It seemed the Havoc had stumbled upon quite the prize. "I see," Nolan replied, his tone measured. "Well, as the new power in this sector, I propose a solution. The Breen will withdraw immediately. In return, I'll ensure fair distribution of the trilithium resources." The Breen commander's response was a barrage of angry chirps. Their ships began to power up weapons and turn them toward the Havoc. Nolan sighed, shaking his head. "I was hoping we could be reasonable about this. Ilara, target their lead ship. Just take out their weapons. Let's show them why it's unwise to pick fights in our new backyard." The Havoc's main weapons array came to life, a lance of energy so powerful it ionized the very space around it. The beam struck the Breen flagship, slicing through its shields as if they were tissue paper. The ship jerked to one side in reaction to the Havoc's lance. They began to tumble, dead in space. Nolan looked up, as was his habit when addressing Ilara. "Really? A bit heavy-handed, maybe? I'm not sure what happened, Nolan. I used a level 2 beam, and only connected with their 3 main weapons ports." She paused. "I only fired at their 2 phaser emitters and the torpedo port. I show they have some sort of smallish tricobalt projectiles, which could mean trouble. Transport all the Breen off that ship over to the other vessels. Nolan already planning to blink the Breen vessel aboard to study its secrets. Now then." Nolan addressed the remaining Breen vessels, his voice cold. "You have a choice. Withdraw now, or I'll be forced to send a stronger message. This sector is under new management." The Breen ships hesitated, then slowly began to retreat. Nolan turned his attention back to the grateful Tobrid captain. "Captain Kelnar, I believe you and I have much to discuss. How would you like to be my local representative in this region? You'll get a fair share of the trilithium and my protection. In return, you'll manage the mining up and help with dealing with the other species in the area." As Kelnar eagerly agreed, Nolan allowed himself a satisfied smile. It wasn't the quiet start he'd envisioned, but it was a golden opportunity. With the right moves, he could establish himself as the dominant power in this sector, controlling the flow of trilithium and shaping the region's future. Now please, let us beam you over, and we'll set our tenders to repairing your ship." Nolan happily told Kelnar, "I look forward to getting to know you and your people." The game was afoot, and Nolan Mercer intended to change the rules entirely. As the remaining Breen ships retreated to a safe distance, Nolan turned his attention back to Captain Kelnar. The Tobrid's reptilian features betrayed a mix of relief and apprehension. "Now, Captain," Nolan began, his tone businesslike, "let's discuss this trilithium deposit of yours. I'm interested in establishing a significant mining operation in this sector, and it seems you stumbled upon quite the find." Kelnar's cranial ridge flushed a deeper shade of bronze. "Yes, Mr. Mercer. The deposits are extensive, but our technology, it's limited. We've barely scratched the surface of what's available." Nolan's lips curled into a smile. "That, my friend, is where I come in. I have the technology and the means to extract and process trilithium on an industrial scale. What I need is a capable workforce and someone who understands the local landscape." He paused, letting the implications sink in. Kelnar's eyes widened with understanding. "Are you proposing a partnership?" the Tobrid captain asked, hope evident in his voice. "Indeed I am," Nolan replied. "If you and your people can manage the day-to-day mining operations, I'll provide the equipment, the protection, and handle distribution. In return, you'll receive a generous share of the profits and my guarantee of safety from threats like our Breen friends out there. We have plenty of able-bodied Tobrid in need of work. My people are fast learners, too," he pointed out. "I will need to relay this back to our central cabal, but I am free to make these decisions for my people." As Kelnar spoke, the Havoc sensors detected movement from the Breen fleet. Several ships were breaking formation, moving to flank the massive dreadship. "It seems our cold companions aren't quite ready to give up," Nolan muttered. "Ilara, power up lateral phaser arrays. Hit weapons and comms like usual. Then we'll shoo them away." The Havoc's weapons came to life once more, lancing out with pinpoint accuracy. The beams struck the Breen ship's comm arrays and weapon systems, leaving them largely intact and able to run away. Turning back to Kelnar, Nolan continued as if the interruption had never occurred. "Now, where were we? Ah, yes, our partnership. What do you say, Captain? Ready to make history in this sector?" Kelnar, still in awe of the Havoc's firepower, nodded eagerly. "Yes, Mr. Mercer, my people would be honored to work with you." With added excitement he included, "The Central Cabal Maxim will be pleased." "Excellent. I'm sure a happy Maxim is a wonderful thing," Nolan said. No idea what a Maxim actually was. "Let's get started then, shall we? Ilara, let's prepare an area in the bay, bring the industrial replicators online, and start building more replicators. At least one specifically for high-pressure bulkheads, and another for grinder faces. We'll be going through a lot of them." Looking up, "We'll begin fabrication of the mining equipment when we have enough infrastructure put together. Captain Kelnar, I'll need you to transmit the specifications of the asteroid field and prepare your crew for some rapid technological upgrades." As the Tobrid captain hurried to comply, Nolan turned his attention back to the view screen. The Breen ships hung motionless in space. Finally, the largest remaining ship turned and began moving away at impulse, then warped out with a long, bright streak. The others began to mimic the process, and all were gone in a few minutes. "Ilara," Nolan said quietly, "keep long-range sensors focused on a potential return of our frosty friends out there. Something tells me they're not the type to give up easily." With that, Nolan began the process of establishing his new mining empire, all the while acutely aware of the watchful eyes of the Breen. The game had only just begun, and he intended to play it to the hilt. Turning back to Kelnar, Nolan's demeanor softened slightly. "Now, let's talk business. Your people will need a base of operations for this mining venture. Any suggestions?" Kelnar's eyes widened at the implication. There's a large asteroid at the tail end of the trilithium deposits. It's stable, and we had hoped to build a base there. With your technology, we could hollow it out, create a station." Nolan nodded, considering the possibilities. A mobile base like the Havoc had its advantages, but a permanent facility could provide stability and a show of commitment to the region. "We'll start with the asteroid," he decided, "but keep your eyes open for other potential locations. As our operation grows, we may need to expand." This was just the beginning. With the trilithium deposits, the Tabrid workforce, and the Havoc's unmatched technological edge, he was poised to build something truly remarkable in this unclaimed corner of space. "Welcome to the start of a new era, Captain Kelnar," Nolan said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting around here." Little did he know just how prophetic those words would prove to be. As the first mining equipment began to take shape in the Havoc's cavernous hold, the seeds of an empire were being sown, an empire that would reshape the balance of power in the sector for centuries to come. As the days turned into weeks, the asteroid field buzzed with activity. The Havoc's replicators worked tirelessly, producing a small fleet of mining vessels and processing equipment. Kelnar's Tabrid crew, initially overwhelmed by the advanced technology, quickly adapted under Nolan's guidance. The chosen asteroid, now dubbed Outpost Alpha, was rapidly transforming. Nolan stood in its newly constructed control center, surveying holographic projections of the growing operation. "Trilithium extraction is at 37% efficiency and climbing," Alara reported. "At this rate, we'll exceed projections by 15% within the quarter." Nolan nodded, satisfaction evident in his stance. "Excellent. And our market research? Several nearby systems have expressed interest in our trilithium," Ilara replied. "The Ferengi, in particular, seem eager to establish trade relations." The hint of excitement entered her voice. "The Ferengi are fascinating, Nolan. They appear to have no females, and their entire society is geared toward acquisitions and generation of profit, so the Starfleet database says." "Are they well armed?" Nolan asked. "Looks like they could more than hold their own in this sector, but nothing to be too concerned with." Ilara laughed, a real laughter unlike anything Nolan had heard from her before. "Their past interactions with Starfleet are hilarious, Nolan. They tried to sell a Vulcan female science officer to Earth, only to later find out she was serving on an Earth vessel, and the Ferengi hadn't actually stolen her yet. Doesn't sound like we've got too much to worry about from them." Nolan muttered. "Looks like they can be pretty creative, if there's enough profit in it for them. Also, they thrive on a metal called latinum. It's a naturally occurring alloy. I'll add it to our scans. Maybe we'll strike it rich, as they say." She chuckled, another new sound Nolan hadn't picked up before. A chime interrupted their conversation. Kelnar's face appeared on a nearby screen, his expression urgent. "Mr. Mercer, we've detected an unidentified vessel approaching the outpost. It's not Breen." Nolan's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The holographic display shifted, revealing a square brown cargo ship of unfamiliar design. It moved at high impulse. A quick scan showed no advanced propulsion technology. "Ilara, any matches in our database?" Nolan murmured. "Negative," she responded. "The design is unlike anything in Federation records." "Well, 3 life signs, and an otherwise empty ship. Hail them, Ilara. Let's see what our visitors want." Toint. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a weathered Bajoran face, his nose ridges prominent and his eyes weary from long travel. "This is Captain Toran Rim of the Bajoran freighter Celestial Seeker. We were not expecting to find an operation of this scale here." Nolan's eyebrows rose slightly, intrigued by this unexpected encounter. "Welcome, Captain Toran. I'm Nolan Mercer, overseer of this operation. According to our charts, you're a long way from home at subwarp speeds." "What's a Bajoran freighter doing so far from home?" Torin's expression was a mixture of wariness and hope. "We've spent nearly a year traveling here, Mercer. Our long-range scans detected mineral deposits, and we hope to mine enough ore to make the journey worthwhile." Nolan nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. 2 years in space for a hold full of unrefined ore. "Captain, that's quite the commitment. Perhaps we can help each other out. We have refined materials ready for transport, and I may have a way to get you home much faster than your sublight engines would allow." The Bajoran captain's eyes widened. You could do that. But how?" "It's just technology," Nolan replied with a slight smile. "Why don't you dock with our station? We can discuss terms that would be mutually beneficial." "Elara," Nolan called out to the ship's AI, his eyes still fixed on the approaching Bajoran freighter. "What can you tell me about the current situation on Bajor?" Elara's disembodied voice filled the room, her tone neutral yet informative. "Bajor is a world rich in resources, but technologically limited. They've only recently achieved sublight interstellar travel. The Bajoran government, led by the Council of Ministers, has been seeking ways to expand their influence and trade relationships." Nolan nodded thoughtfully. "This could be an excellent opportunity to establish a foothold in that region. Prepare a proposal for the Bajoran Council. We'll offer them refined materials at competitive rates and significantly reduce transport times." As the Bajoran freighter approached the docking bay, Nolan couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. This unexpected encounter is the first step to expanding his influence far beyond this isolated sector. The arrival of the Celestial Seeker might be the lucky break he was looking for. "Kelnar," Nolan called out, "please prepare our best quarters for our Bajoran guests, and see if the kitchens add some traditional Bajoran flavors to our replicators. Let's make sure they feel welcome." As he watched the small freighter dock, Nolan's mind was already racing with plans. The game was expanding, and he was determined to play it to his advantage. "Welcome to Outpost Alpha." Nolan greeted them warmly, extending his hand. "I trust your docking procedure went smoothly?" Captain Torin stared at Nolan's hand, his face remaining unfazed even as the filthy, suggestive gesture stared back at him. "It did, thank you, Mr. Mercer. I must admit we're still in awe of the scale of your operation here." A female crew member in a bulky spacesuit stepped forward. "The information we had when we left Bajor was that the Tabrid were working the far end of this field. Are you in touch with our other ships too, Mercer?" "I'm sorry, I haven't been here long, just a couple months. I haven't met any Bajorans prior to this moment." He looked over at Kelnar. "Had your people seen anything before the Havoc arrived?" Kelnar's forehead darkened and his eyes darted around the room. "That end of the asteroid field. The Breen were the only ones I knew of." He looked between Nolan and the Bajoran woman. "When my people took our shuttles too far in that direction, they did not return." "Breen," he seethed, showing his teeth. The woman continued. "I'm Venret first mate for the voyage, but foreman for the mining portion of the operation. We had 2 crews sent ahead of us. They had most of our mining equipment." Shaking her head slowly, "It's bad enough that we're useless here without that equipment, but we've also lost 6 good people." She looked up to Torin. "How do we break the news back home?" "That's the captain's duty. He let me worry about it." "My apologies. Mercer, we don't mean to burden you with Bajoran affairs." Nolan put on a grim smile, gesturing for them to follow him. "Well, Captain, I believe we have much to discuss. Your journey here has been long, and I think I can offer you a solution that will make it at least soften the sting of the financial loss." As they walked through the station's corridors, Nolan began to outline his proposal. The Bajorans listened with growing interest, their fatigue seeming to melt away as they realized the potential of what Nolan was offering. "Now," Nolan said as they entered a conference room with a view of the bustling mining operation, "let's talk about how we can turn this chance encounter into a lasting relationship for both Bajor and our humble operation here." Epilogue. A dull light played across the rocky wall of Nolan's quarters on Outpost Alpha. He had allowed himself the indulgence of a big, comfortable bed with thick padding, large pillows, and thick, soft comforters. Nearly asleep, his thoughts drifted to Vinrette, her soft red curls and warm dark eyes, the way she looked in her form-fitting thermal suit, her movement, the smell of her as she curled around him, mounted him, and leaned forward, her body supple and exquisite against his breath deep, his heart pounding. He felt the cold air drifting down, a freezing feeling on his neck and shoulders. Nolan opened his eyes as the breen riding him sat up and erupted in orgasmic quirking and chirping noises. Nolan shot upright in his bed, shooting a large body pillow against the rocky wall. Thankfully, alone in the dark,